Hey guys, welcome to my channel. So today's video is going to be 5 different go-to weeknight meal ideas. So I did film this over a couple of weeks because we usually do have leftovers with all of these meals. So I wasn't cooking 5 days in a row, but all of these meals are go-tos for my family. We all like them, we'll all eat them. Even the pickiest kids will eat these, at least in my household they will. So yeah, and I usually have 3 rules when it comes to dinners, especially for the busier seasons like fall and winter and when we're in school. When the kids are in school, I try to do 30 minutes or less. I like to have a carb, a protein, a fruit, or a vegetable with every meal. Sometimes we'll do a fruit, sometimes we'll do a vegetable, sometimes we do both. It just really depends. And the third rule is it has to be something that I know we'll all eat, especially on busy weeknights. So yes. And that's not saying I don't experiment and I don't try new things, but if I'm going to experiment and try new things, I kind of like to do that on the weekends. But these are five go-to weeknight recipes. So let's jump right in. Okay, so the first recipe isn't even really a recipe. It's ham and cheese sliders. Of course, you can do whatever kind of sliders you want. All you need is, you can use the Hawaiian rolls. We don't like the Hawaiian rolls. So, well, some of us do, some of us don't. So we just use the yeast rolls from Walmart. At least that's where I got these. And you'll need a whole pack of ham. You can use deli ham if you want. I just bought some lunch meat. And you'll need slices of cheese. First thing is just cutting the rolls in half. I try to do this as precise as possible so I don't end up with a whole bunch of unleveled rolls, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And mine broke into a few different pieces, so that's what that's why you see me doing it in sections. And then after you get them cut, that's when you layer your ham and cheese. You can do this however you want. You can add more meat than I did. This is just the go-to for my family. This is what we all eat. This is what we all agree with. Or all agree on, so yeah. I have made different ones. I've made pizza sliders before with ham and pepperoni and some pizza sauce and some mozzarella cheese. I've done turkey and cheese. You can also use chicken and like make barbecue chicken sliders and do all that, but I'm just showing ham and cheese because that's easy and I know we'll all eat it. And I try to layer the ham and the cheese as well as possible. That way you get a good amount of meat and cheese in every sandwich. while I was getting everything ready, I had the oven preheating to 375. And after it got to 375, I just put these in the oven for 15 minutes. Our oven's acting wonky with the temperature lately, so I did 15 minutes, but depending on your oven, you could probably get away with 10. I just know I can't get away with 10 anymore in my oven if I want it warm and melty. So, this is what they look like when they come out. The top is a little crispy, but that's kind of how we like them. I was trying to get a good shot of the melted cheese and all that, but I didn't really do that. And then this night was just a kind of like a free-for-all. I made the sliders. We had some of these pretzel thins, pickles, and an apple, or whatever fruit or veggie that we had in the fridge is what we ate. That's just my plate. Okay, so this next meal is sausage, or with peppers and onions, and the side dish is potatoes. I don't usually show side dishes because I usually do really quick ones, but in case you don't know how to do roasted potatoes, I wanted to share with you how I do them. I just cut the potato in half and then cut that half into strips, and then I cut them into smaller pieces. That way they don't take that long in the oven. I roasted mine at, like, I don't even remember, it was at 400 or 425, and it took about 25 minutes, which is nice because I just like to have stuff that can be done in 30 minutes or less. This takes a little bit more time with all the chopping, but if you are one of those people and you have time earlier in the day to get everything chopped, then go right ahead. I just didn't think about it, and we were getting hungry, and we just needed something fast. But I did end up having to think about the sausage, and I did get that out earlier in the day, and I actually did end up making this one for a lunch instead of a dinner, because we had plans for dinner this night, but we were all home for a snow day or something. So yeah, I did end up making this for a lunch. And to finish off these potatoes, I cut them into pieces like that. I topped them with some butter, salt, and pepper, and they just went in the oven. And that's how we roast potatoes. We all eat them like that, and nobody complains, which is fine by me. Okay, so for the sausage and peppers, what I do is I melt like a tablespoon of butter in a pan, and I saute the onions and peppers first. And once I get those cooked enough to where they're not, I have done it all together, and what I have found is the sausage is done and cooked, because the sausage is already cooked through. All you're really doing is browning it and heating it up. And the peppers and onions don't get done the way we like them to get done if I do it different. So I always cook the peppers and onions, and then after I cook those, that's when I throw in the sausage. So yes, I had the potatoes in the oven for a few minutes and I forgot to set the timer. So 400 for, I think I set it for 20 minutes, but they'd already been in there for like 5 minutes already. And they were done in 25 minutes just based off the size. But I like to get the peppers and onions to this point. They're not quite translucent and they're not super soft, but they are soft enough to where once the sausage is heated through and browned, it's good and I can serve it up. And for this particular day, we did sausage and peppers on hoagie rolls. Not everybody had a hoagie roll, but I did, and yeah, my brother did as well. Some of us just had the sausage and peppers, and the potatoes we all had. And I always add ketchup to my potatoes because I have to. Okay, so the third meal it's called a bubble up pizza bake. Biscuits, pizza sauce, pepperoni, and mozzarella cheese. I preheat the oven to 350 because I just follow the directions on the can of biscuits. I spray the 9x13 I'm using, and the original recipe calls for 2 cans of biscuits. I have made it using 2 cans of biscuits. The way we like it, we don't need both cans. And it will feed all of us with leftovers, even with just using that 1 can of biscuits. But I was trying to cut them up 2 at a time, and I realized, yeah, this isn't working, so I started cutting them up 1 at a time. But I just use kitchen scissors. I found it easier to do it this way. I've made this a couple of times, but I've never shared it. And this is really good, quick, easy, and honestly, I think, yeah, I made this one for lunch as well on another day when we were all kind of snowed in and just, we needed to eat, but we weren't starving. Because this is filling, and it's quick and easy, and but but it's filling enough without being heavy, if that makes any sense. biscuits are all cut up, I'm using my homemade pizza sauce. You don't have to use homemade. You can totally use a jar from the store. But I dump that whole thing over the biscuits. Then I layer with cheese and pepperoni. And of course, you can do other toppings. It was just we had the mozzarella cheese. Like, you're going to need the mozzarella cheese unless you do something else on your pizza. But we had pepperoni, and I didn't feel like digging out like a pepper or sausage or anything just for a quick throw together lunch slash dinner, because some of us ended up having this for dinner as well that night. But this bakes at 350 for 20 minutes. I think I did end up cooking mine for 25 because the biscuits weren't done enough, but this is what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. And you can see why it's kind of bubble up pizza, because the biscuits do bubble up. But I added a lot of cheese and pepperoni, so you can't really see that, but you can. But I ended up serving mine with, we ended up having side salad. We ended up having a salad on the side for this lunch slash dinner. That way, that's our vegetable. Like I said, I try to include a vegetable with every meal, or a fruit. It doesn't always happen, so yeah. But the next one is my take on chicken Alfredo. It sounded good this particular night, and I didn't have a can of Alfredo sauce, and I've made homemade Alfredo sauce before, so yeah. And I had some cubed chicken, or I had some chicken that I'd cut into cubes, so it worked out really quick because that thawed out in no time. But I did spaghetti. So I had the water boiling so I could cook spaghetti on the side as I was cooking the chicken first, and I just cooked it in butter with salt and pepper. And I don't always include me walking all over the kitchen in these videos, but this is real life. I have to walk over to this cabinet and this cabinet and get stuff out and put stuff away and all that. And like, kind of like that dish, you can see where we'd had the bubble up pizza earlier in the day for lunch. And there was still some in that pan, and I didn't realize how bad the angle was until I was going through to edit this video. So yeah, but I removed the chicken from the pan, and I added in probably another tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of butter, and I'm letting that melt in the pan. And I'm stirring the spaghetti, and then I'm going to switch this camera over a little bit, so I hope this doesn't drive you nuts, but this was the only way I could film how I'm doing this. But once the butter is all melted, and I leave the chicken bits in the pan, it's just added flavor. I know everybody has a problem with that. I added about probably 2 cups of heavy cream. There are recipes for homemade Alfredo sauce on the internet, and this is the easiest one I found. It's 2 cups of cream. Well, it's 2 tablespoons of melted butter, 2 cups of cream, and a quarter of a cup to half a cup of Parmesan cheese. I'm guessing it's supposed to be shredded Parmesan, but we didn't have that, and we had this, and it worked just fine. And I know I shouldn't eyeball stuff when I do these videos, but that's how I cook. I've cooked long enough to know how to eyeball stuff, and I also know what recipes say doesn't always mean that's what they need. But I've made this recipe before, and about a half a cup, which is what I added, of Parmesan cheese is great. And you could cook that and just eat it as is, and I'm stirring the spaghetti here. But we like when I add in a little bit of mozzarella. So probably about a cup of mozzarella cheese went into this. Probably, yeah, because I did 2 big handfuls and a little bit more. And I wish I would have had more cream, because I added so much mozzarella cheese to this that it ended up being more like cheesy pasta than it did actual chicken Alfredo. But we all ate it, we all liked it, and that's what matters. And all I really did was add a little bit too much mozzarella. But it worked out when I added the pasta, because I know not everybody does this, but I can't do it with red sauce. But with chicken Alfredo, I can add in the spaghetti into the actual sauce, and that's fine. But after it got to that point, like, you can see how much cheese that's in that. And I was trying to stir it up a little bit different to see if that was the problem. But I just ended up tasting it anyway and adding more salt and pepper. And that is one thing. Taste your food as you cook it, especially stuff like this. Because I thought with all the cheese it would have enough salt, and it didn't. And I needed to add a lot more. But it also needed pepper. And you can add Italian seasoning, onion powder, garlic powder, all that stuff. I don't like it that way. We don't eat it that way unless it's out of a jar. So, yeah. But at that point, when I tasted it again, made sure the flavors were right, we added the chicken back in, and we kind of I just let it cook until the spaghetti was done. Then after the spaghetti was done, I drained it, saved the pasta water, and I dumped the spaghetti into the pan, and then I ended up using the rest of the pasta water that I had saved and dumping that in as well to loosen it up a little bit and make it more of a sauce instead of like a spider web of cheese, which is what you see here. And I started by adding in part of the spaghetti, being afraid it wasn't going to all fit in the pan, and it turned out fitting all in the pan perfectly fine. So I just stirred it up, covered, made sure it was all coated, added the rest of the pasta water when I realized, yes, this needs to be loosened up a little bit more. And that's how we ended up. Then after I'd added the pasta water, it was perfectly fine. And I will say I had turned off the heat at that point. That way it wasn't cooking anymore, even though it was still incredibly hot, as you can see with the steam. And I know this is not your typical chicken Alfredo, and if you just want to use jarred Alfredo sauce and cook up some chicken and dump the Alfredo sauce in the pan, heat it up, and then toss it in some spaghetti, go ahead and do that. But we served ours with peas this night, and we ended up all enjoying this, plus having more leftovers, and I had some leftovers today for lunch, and it was super good. Either way. The next thing in the final recipe in this video is tacos. This is probably going to be the easiest one. And I didn't get me cooking and draining the ground beef. I just cooked and drained it. Then I added in taco seasoning and water. And that's what you got. That's what you get when you do this. That's what this is here that you're seeing. And I'm just letting it cook a little bit. And I do want to show that we use the Ortega taco seasoning, and we buy the giant tubs, and we just eyeball how much we want. Because if you go through, yeah, I just need a packet, even if we're using a pound or a pound and a half ground beef, a packet equivalent is not enough for us, so yes. But this is what my tacos look like. We had soft taco shells, so that's what we used. Cheese and lettuce, and let me add in that a lot of these recipes I cooked on snow days, so we're cooking and using what we have in the pantry. So this is what you get, and you can still eat a good healthy meal either way. Okay, so that's going to be it for this weeknight meal ideas. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the red subscribe button down below. If you want more recipe videos, then make sure you are subscribed, because I am planning a few more. But if you like dinner ideas, then let me know down below. Other than that, thank you for watching, and I will see you on Friday for my next video. Bye bye.